Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Emily. I do beauty videos and plus size content here. Welcome. In today's video I just want to get ready with me, and I just want to get ready, and I thought that you could join me. I want to talk about grieving and dealing with death, because I just saw Erica's video. I would link it down below, where she talks about how she dealt with her mother passing, and I thought that I wanted to do a video similar to that, since my mother passed, and maybe it can help someone with the grief. So a little backstory. I lived with my mother. So yeah, this video will be about death and cancer, and me being only 20 and handling that. So if you don't want to see that, then click off. But as Erica said, I think that give it a few minutes and maybe you realize that you can watch this, because it's grief is important. So yeah, backstory. I lived with my mother until I was 7 years old, and then I went to live with my dad. I lived with my mom full time, and then visited my dad every other weekend. And then when I was 7, almost 8, I had to move in with him because my mother was so sick. She had mental health issues, and she self-medicated with alcohol, so it was not a good environment for a child to be in. So I moved to my dad when I was 7, almost 8, and lived with him for a year, and then he decided he wanted to move in with his girlfriend and her children, her family. So we all moved in together, and I lived with them until I was 15, and then I moved out, or they kicked me out. But that's a whole other story. But during this time when I didn't live with my mom, she got even sicker, because now she didn't have a child to take care of. But anyway, she was in and out of hospital my entire life, and we had a relationship, but it wasn't like the best, since sometimes it could be over a year between our meetings, and it was hard. My mother meant a lot to me. She was so strong and so kind, and she really taught me how to love. She loved me unconditionally, and I don't think that my dad does, and I don't think that you can say that my dad does that. But she really did, and she showed me that, even though she was sick. We talked a lot growing up, but as I said, I didn't see her as often as I wanted. When I was in 8th grade, between 8th and 9th grade, I tried to contact her during the summer, and she didn't answer, which was not anything to be alarmed of, since she probably went to the hospital. She always called a few days after being at the hospital, but now it had been several months, several weeks, and no contact. So her phone was off. So I talked to my dad, and he said, yeah, well, it's probably nothing, but let's call your grandpa. He lives quite near, and maybe he can go and check her apartment and check if she's okay. So he called my grandpa since we didn't have a relationship and I didn't want to call. Remember, I was only 15. So my dad called him, and then a couple of hours later, or maybe the day after, I don't remember, my grandpa called saying that no one had taken in the post from the post box, and it was no lights were on, and the curtains were closed. And then my dad sat me down and said, you should prepare for the worst, because no one's answering and your grandpa has called the police. And this is not the time where she dies. And I remember feeling that I was not shocked, because I think I always imagined her dying when I was not an adult, because she was sick and she wasn't well, so I always thought she would die early. But anyway, then the police came and a locksmith came, and then they found out that she was in the hospital, and the reason no one had called us was because she couldn't speak. So it turns out that she went in to get medication for her over-drinking, and when that medication hit, they gave her too much or something, so it caused her to have a stroke, and she lost the ability to speak. She lost all the muscles in her face, and she couldn't walk or anything, and she always told the hospital not to call her children because she didn't want to, and here in Sweden you can choose, so she chose not to call us. But I remember we got that information and they said that she's alive in the hospital and it's okay, they said. At that time I didn't know that she had a stroke. And then I just thought that she would call me when she was feeling better, and I didn't worry that much. And then I remember this so vividly because I was at my boyfriend's, and this was during a time when I just met my boyfriend, and my dad and his girlfriend didn't want me around that much, and I was being bullied at school. So I had a lot going on, and all the hormones when you're a teenager. But then I remember I was at my boyfriend's house, and my phone rang, and it was I think it was a no caller ID, and it was the hospital. It was a nurse, and she said that my mother wanted to speak to me, and I should prepare a bit because she can't really speak, but she wants to hear your voice. And I don't know, I think that when you are 15 you cannot handle that. But anyway, she came to the phone, and all I could hear was like gurgling noises because she couldn't speak. So I just told her about basically nothing, because I didn't want her to feel bad for me not feeling good. So I told her that everything was fine and that I missed her and stuff. And then it took a year for her to be better. She went to physical therapy and stuff like that, and she learned to speak again, and you didn't notice that she had a stroke or anything. It was really good. It took a year. And then after that she was never the same, because I don't know, I think it took a toll on her, and I think her mental health got worse during that time, obviously. But then I was 15, 16, and then she basically stopped drinking, because she had to move to another home where she could get help for her mental issues, and also for if she needed help like cleaning and stuff. It's a long story, but yeah, that's a bit of a side story, sorry. Then and she never wanted to call any of us, especially me, because I'm the youngest, and she's always seen me as her baby. So, and remember I said that I always thought that she would die early. And then in the spring of 2008, she said that she was experiencing problems with her stomach, and she said not to worry, and she had been in contact. At first she didn't want to contact the hospital, but then when she had been in contact with the hospital, she said not to worry because it was nothing. And this was in April, and I remember saying to her that I want your doctor to call me, because I want to hear from your doctor that everything is fine. And then I at that time I worked at I was 20. I just moved out of my sister's, because I went to live with my sister when I was 16. I had just moved out from my sister's, and I was living with two girlfriends, and I was working at a grocery store with those two friends, so I was really living life. And I remember working, and then I remember I missed a phone call from the doctor, and I just thought that they would call again. And then my sister had written to me in the text message, "Are you okay? Do you want to talk? Should we meet up?" And I remember thinking, what do you mean? I'm at work, why should I leave? Has something happened? What has happened? I just remember everything going vivid in my mind. And then I excused myself from, because I was sitting in the, do you call it a till, where people pay for the groceries? Yes, I excused myself and went into a office, my boss office, and I called my sister and I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "You didn't speak to the doctor?" And I was like, "No, I didn't. I missed the call, why?" And she said, "Oh, wait for the doctor to call, I don't want to be the one to tell you." And I was like, "You have to tell me now, you can't really, you can't say that and then we hung up, and what if the doctor don't call me until tomorrow? I can't deal with this." So she told me that the doctor told her that my mom had cancer. She had, what is it called in English? She had, is it rectal cancer? I'm going to go with it. Yeah, rectal cancer. And that it has progressed quickly, and they can't say how long she has left, but it's not long. And I remember feeling so shocked because she said to me 2 weeks before that she was fine. And her stomach issues was her stomach issues was because of something else. And then I started to cry and I thought that maybe I should go home. And then we hung up, and then the doctor actually called again while I was still crying from the first phone call. And she was like, "Oh, am I calling you at a bad time? Why are you sad?" I was like, "Yeah, I know what you're going to tell me because I just talked to my sister. But I want to hear it from you as well." And she confirmed that my mother has rectal cancer. It had probably spread. They were going to do more tests and they couldn't say how long she had left, but it's not something you can cure. And I remember sitting there thinking, what do I do now? I'm at work, I need to go home, I can't really cope. And then my best friend, whom I lived with and worked with, she came in because she saw that I left to speak on the phone. And her mother died of cancer when she was only 12 or something like that, 13. So I just said cancer and we both broke down in tears. And then I told her that if we don't go somewhere to eat, I won't eat. Because if I shut down now, I will shut down. So we actually went to have lunch, which was quite nice actually. And then I decided to go home and just rest for what was left of the day, and I returned to work the day after, I think. And then this was in April, and then she moved to a nursing home, which is like the last stop. And she was there for a couple of weeks, and then they said that they would operate so she could have a bag on her stomach so she didn't have to feel so bad. And my mother was really stubborn. She was a smoker, and you can't smoke at hospital grounds, but she managed to do that anyway. She was so stubborn. And then she didn't really recover from that operation. She was too sick to have it, I think. She knew she was going to die, but she couldn't speak of it, so we never spoke about it. And then now I don't remember the date, which is quite funny, but in June, the middle of June, I was at a party with my work. It was, I wonder if it was like the World Championship in football or something, and the hospital called and said that my mother is sleeping and they don't think that she will wake up. So if I wanted to come in, I should come in, and they said, "Oh, can you call your sister as well so we don't have to call her?" I was like, okay, sure. So I called my sister and we went into the hospital, and when we arrived we just kind of ran to the room, and she was sleeping. She had morphine because she was in pain. And then I have a older sister that lives in England. She was in Sweden in like April and a bit of May, but she needed to go back to work. So she went back to England because she knew we would call her if something happened, and we called her, and she actually missed the last flight out. So this was a Friday, I think, or maybe a Saturday. Anyway, it was a Saturday, and she said, "I will take the first flight tomorrow morning and I will be at the hospital at 10. So, and then this was Saturday night. So my mom she was sleeping. She kind of woke up because she was struggling to breathe because of like saliva and stuff got stuck in her throat, so they had to help her. And then I thought this is it, but she woke up and she looked at us and she asked about my sister. And I said, tomorrow morning at 10 we're meeting here, so we will see you tomorrow morning. And she was like, yeah, you will see me tomorrow morning. And then I decided I didn't want to stay looking at her dying to the night, so I went home. We decided to go home to get some sleep. And then the next day I called the hospital just to see how she was doing, and they said that she was fine. She had been really happy this morning. She had asked where her children was, and she had said that my children would be here today at 10. And then she wanted to walk, and she couldn't really walk because of, I think her legs were swollen or something. So they gave her a not a sedative, but they gave her something to calm her down because she was really upset that she couldn't go out smoking. Which is so funny. And then at 10 o'clock I met up with my sisters, and we got to the hospital, went into the room. I immediately backed out just to tell the doctor that we had arrived, so that they knew that we were there. And when I was speaking to the nurse, one of my sisters came out and said, you need to come. She's not breathing anymore. And then the nurse came in and said that she isn't breathing, and but the doctor needs to make the final notice that she's gone. And this was like just after 10, and she was warm, and they had checked on her just before we came, and she was fine, or she was sleeping. So she probably let go when she knew that the three of us were together. So I'm not going to cry. Yes. So, and then they kind of like dressed her or something, I don't know, and they put a flower in her hand or something, so we could say our final goodbyes. She died at a place at the hospital where people rarely die, so they didn't really know what to do. But anyway, then we were going to go home, and it was so weird because, and Erica says this as well, when we left the hospital, everything for everyone else was the same. The bus was leaving on time, and people were going. I remember people having like balloons, and they were going to like a birthday party, and it was so weird. But anyway, as I said, I was 20 when this happened. I lived with my two best friends, and 1 week or something before my mom died, 2 weeks before my mom died, my boyfriend broke up with me. We had been together for 5 years, and he just left me. And after my mom died, I met a man that I was then with for 5 years. But I am sure that if I hadn't been grieving the wrong way, I had never chosen him, because he was controlling in a way that, mildly controlling in a way, and he was not the one, and we did not have a good relationship. And I remember thinking when we met that this person is interchangeable, or I don't know how to say it, but this person will never change. And for me at that time, that was such a relief, because I didn't want anyone to change. I just wanted my mom back. So I met my boyfriend, who was not the one, instead of grieving properly. And as I said, I knew that my mom would die early. She was 51 when she passed away, and I remember thinking when I was a kid, like when I was like 7-8 years old, that my mom won't probably live as long as other moms. So I had in a way accepted that, and I started to go to therapy when I was 9 because of both my mom's issues but also what was happening at my dad's house. So I had kind of, in one sense, I had already gone through this in my mind and handled it, or like I don't know how to describe it, but then when she died, I went into a dark spiral of drinking too much. I was 20 and I drank every weekend. When I didn't have work, I was working every other weekend, and then I drank every weekend, and I used to get really drunk, puking and passing out, and memory loss, stuff like that. And I remember thinking that at some point I need to stop this, because at some point I need to deal with the loss of my mother, and I don't want to get alcohol problems. She had that, so I think that I have a larger chance to develop that as well. But so I didn't really speak about it, or like I just went on with my life, and then I dealt with it years later, but I still have trouble sometimes not to. I think that your grief, I think that there will be a part of you that always grieves that you lost a loved one, even though your life continues on. I mean, I have a family of my own now, I'm a mother. It's not so hard to me anymore, and after reading her hospital records, hospital journals from her mental facilities and stuff, I realized that she would never ever have been better than she was. She would only get worse, and that is kind of tragic itself on its own. And so I don't know, if she had survived the cancer, I don't think that she would be such a person that was. I don't think that she would have met Matilda and had a relationship with Matilda, because I think she was too ill for that. But anyway, in Sweden we are quite good at talking about emotions, I think. Or maybe we're not, but I am. I'm like an open book. I don't mind speaking about stuff, and for me it's kind of healing, and I know that since I started to go into therapy when I was just a kid. So I know that talking about it helps me out. So I talked about it with a therapist. Not that much though, because I don't know, I as I said, I think that in a way I dealt with it when I was a kid. I dealt with the fact that I would lose my mom when I was young. But my mom was really loving and really caring, and she always did her best to take care of me and my sisters, or me in a way, because I was her baby, and I would stay her baby even though I was like 15, 20. So so I dealt with it drinking and meeting the wrong person, and I was with him for 5 years. So when we separated, I actually dealt with the grief the loss of my mother in another way, because I had like suppressed it. I had talked about it and stuff, but I had not dealt with it so much because I had other issues. So when I got single, I kind of dealt with that, and at some point I still am dealing with the loss of her, even though I'm fine with it and I've accepted it, and it's not that, but it's sad, of course, and I get reminded about it sometimes. When I got depressed, I obviously spoke to a psychiatrist, and we talked a little bit about my mother. But yes, I think that if you are dealing with loss, you really need to speak to someone professional, because that truly helps, and you need to realize that grief has a lot of stages, and I remember feeling confused, I remember feeling angry, I remember feeling so lost, and then I remember feeling acceptance, and I remember feeling relieved because we didn't have to take care of her anymore, and that's a horrible feeling, but that passed as well, and now I'm just sad that she isn't around to know me, but as I said, she would probably not know me anyway because she was getting sicker. So if you're going through the loss of a loved one, I think that the most important thing is to actually stay away from alcohol, but grieve properly, because it's okay to grieve. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to cry in public. It's okay to miss them. It's okay to talk about them. It's okay to talk about them a lot. People in your closest, people that are close to you should understand that this is someone you lost, and you want to talk about them. I still talk a lot about my mom, especially with my sisters, and we laugh about stuff that we went through and the fun. My mom was quite funny, and my mom was quite smart, and we always talk about that she always read some books and she was smart. I didn't know my mom that good because we didn't have that kind of conversations when we talked. That sounds weird, but we had a relationship. We talked on the phone quite often, but it was not. You had to be a little bit careful around her, so she could feel left out, and she could feel like she hadn't done everything for us and stuff like that, and I don't agree with that, because I think that she did an amazing job raising me. But anyway, her favorite flower, I think, was tulips, so I have a tattoo that is dedicated to her with 3 tulips that is for me and my 2 sisters. And I'm happy that I got that, because as I said, I think that was her favorite flower. So it's a tribute to her, and I love tulips as well. And I visit her grave now, not so much because I don't have the time, and I think it's important to not feel obligated to go, but we go once a year. We go more than once a year, but once a year we go there on, is it All Hallows Eve, where you light the candle on people on the graveyard, and so yeah, I'm a bit all over the place. I am so sorry about that, but the grief is different in different people, and you grieve differently, and that's definitely fine. grief is not something universal. It can hit you now and it can hit you later. As I said, I have worked through almost all of my grief, but then when I got pregnant and when I had my daughter, and basically the last 2 years I've been thinking about my mom a lot, and what she did for me and what she meant to me, and how she was as a person, and that she is the one that has taught me how to love unconditionally, because my dad doesn't, and that she always did her best. I mean, she had no money and she did send money anyway to me when I was growing up, so I could buy clothes and stuff, because my dad didn't do that. And she always, when she was not drinking and when she was taking her medication, she was the best mom ever. We had a really good relationship, and she was smart, and she was funny, and yes, so that was a tribute to my mom, but also like talk a little bit about what grief can be. And as I said, I think it's important to talk to someone about grief, because it's actually nice to open up, because you remember stuff about the person that you might have forgotten, or you think about stuff. It's so easy to think about the negative things and the negative feelings, but it's important to remember that there's probably positive things as well. And even though death is not a positive outcome, death happens to all of us. I mean, it's the final destination. Everyone is going to die. And sure, my mom, we got the cancer call in April, and in June she was gone. It went really quick, but that also means that she didn't have to suffer so long. I can't imagine having that problem and feeling so bad that she did, and having those pains as she did for several years, and watch her become cancer. Now it went so quickly, even though it spread really fast. So she did have cancer like in her lungs and in her like, well, everywhere in the stomach and stuff, because when you get rectal cancer, I think it spreads because you can't really cure it. I can't imagine sitting by her hospital bed for years, just watching her kind of dying a little bit every day. So in that sense, I'm not happy is the wrong word, but I am content with the fact that it went quick, and that has taught me a lot. I'm still having troubles going to the hospital, because I think hospitals smell weird, and I still have a problem going to the church, because we had a funeral at the church. We are not, in Sweden we don't, most of the people are not Christians, or we are atheists, so, but we had a funeral at the church, so I still have a bit of a problem going to a church. But as I said, I think it's important to grieve properly, and it's important to let yourself feel all the feelings you're feeling. I was even angry at my mom for a while, because she was so stubborn. She didn't want to tell me she had cancer, because I was the youngest, and she thought that I couldn't handle it. Meanwhile, I think I was the one that handled her being sick the best. So I don't know. And I think it's funny that she, not funny, but I think it's cool, or like, I don't know how to say that, but I think it's a cool fact that she seems to have waited until we were all together until she passed away. And I think that that is common. They said that when we talked to our grief counselor before she went, that people don't die in a room full of people. They often die when everyone has left, or like if you're sitting there for several hours and then when you go to the bathroom they pass away. I'm not sure why it is like that, but that is totally true with us, because she was holding on when we were there, and she was holding on until like 10 o'clock when my sister came. So that was quite cool. And I miss my mom, I do, but this is gonna sound harsh, but at the same time I don't, because she was not a mother, because she was so sick. But that is my story about my mother. I'm sorry if it was a bit all over the place. I have never talked about this like this before, but as I said, I think it's important to let yourself feel all the emotions you are feeling and talk to someone. You're not alone in this, even though you might feel alone and you don't have anyone close by to talk to. There's grief counseling, there are grief groups and stuff like that. My mother's name was Lena, or I don't know how to say that in English. Lena. And she was 51 years old when she passed away in 2008. So I lost my mom 13 years ago. So this is not something that bothers me every day. But sure, I think about it, that I don't have a mom when I have my own kids. My battery cut me off, and yeah, but I wanted to say that grief is different. I don't know where I left off. I just finished everything. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry if this was hard for you. As I said, get help if you experience grief. It's a normal feeling. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you want to, and I see you in my next one. Bye!